Hey, okay, so where were we? Way back when? Honestly, I don't even remember. We were working on, um, weren't we working on the yin and yang cycles? Remind me, help me get going. Kevin.
Yeah, the Yin and Yang cycles. I'm just trying to remember what move we were on.
Well, in a sense, it doesn't really matter. Let's do them. Let's tie them in with Annie and I were talking about the earlier class we just had, and uh, I was unhappy with it, but she liked some of the points in there. I'll tell you the reason I was unhappy with it. When I plan to do something, I don't like it. I never like how it turns out. I like it to be spontaneous, and then something magical happens. When you plan it, I don't know. It's just sort of screwy. Um, One thing that Annie said she liked is connecting the Tai Chi movements to the idea of reeling silk in or pulling silk out. And that's a very old metaphor in China. So you have two options, right? You can reel the silk in, and where you reel it in is around the dan chin, as if it were a spindle, right? So you can reel it in here, or you can pull it out from there and then reel it back in and then pull it out, right? And you can pull it out with your hand, you can pull it out with your elbow, you can pull it out with your knee, any part of the body. The, so this is a little different metaphor than we've been using to describe this. I've been describing it in terms of coiling up and uncoiling, which is exactly the same thing, right? You're coiling up and then you're uncoiling, right? So you're reeling the silk in and then you're pulling the silk out. In, out. Okay, every one of those in and out cycles is a yin and yang cycle. That's it. It's pretty simple. All right. You coil up to get ready to do something, and then you do it. All right. You coil up, you uncoil. You reel the silk in, you pull the silk out. The reason that they call it silk and silk reeling, so the Chinese for silk reeling is chansa. S means silk. That's where our word silk comes from. S. Um, and chan means to reel. But that leaves, or rather, it means to pull out. That leaves the reel unspoken. It really, the whole phrase should be chance, chansa, chosa. All right? Reel it in, unreel. Then it's the whole cycle. But they don't say chansa, chosa, they just say chansa. It's because they all know what it means, so they just shorten the phrase. Kevin.
Okay, so now I'm having a mental problem trying to connect pulling silk out and pushing and fajin because it seems like it's two contradictory things, pulling and pushing.
Um,
Am I being too literal?
Probably. I'm trying to get to where you are. I'm trying to also find the right light in here. The light is quite bright coming from the ceiling now, so it washes me out a little bit. Um, so Kevin, it's I mean these are metaphors, so don't take them super literally. But basically, it's a really simple idea, right? You're winding up, and then you're unwinding, right? So that's why I like the metaphor of the spring. All right, the spring, if you just hold it here, it's not moving. But if you compress it, boom, then it's going to expand. That's what they mean by reeling it in, is to compress it. To pull it out is to let that compression go. Does this make sense, Jill? See, here's the thing. Imagine you're a baseball player. Have you guys ever played baseball with a little kid, like maybe 4 or 5 years old, right? And so you toss them the ball, and this is what they do. They have no idea about winding up. They're just trying to hit the ball. So they're all yang and no yin. Only when they get to be a little older and probably work with a coach do they realize somebody tosses the ball, you got to wind up. You actually wind up away from the ball, and then come to hitting the ball. All right. In other words, if you want to have a strong yang, right? If you want to have a strong hit, you have to have a strong yin. So a good baseball hitting coach is really going to focus on the yin more than he focuses on the yang. The yang's relatively easy. It happens on its own. It's the yin part that's difficult. If I have to play with this spring, all right, and I want the spring to have a little action, it's the compression of the spring that I have to work at. All right, I've got to really work at that. That actually hurts my fingers. All right, I have to, and then you just let it go. You don't do anything. You just let go. This is the effort. That's no effort at all. That's just the opposite of the way we think of things in the West. I don't know why, because we've got plenty of springs here. But do you see what I mean? If we're a baseball hitter and you're a naive baseball hitter, which most baseball hitters are, right? You think the power is in that, but it's not. The power's in the windup. Boom. And then the unwinding happens almost automatically without any effort at all. And that just doesn't work with our heads. Now the yin side is the soft side. So the power is in the soft side, not in the hard side. Jill, is this clear? It's very counterintuitive.
Actually, I'm making a correlation to the reverse yogic breathing because there was an aspect of it that I never quite understood, is that when you're inhaling, which is sort of the yin cycle of that, is there's the tension in your belly.
Yes, exactly.
You exhale is that you just let it go.
And the exhale, you just let it go and relax.
Yeah.
It's very counterintuitive. In the West, we don't think that way very much. I think in modern China, they have some troubles thinking that way too. But in the traditional China, that's kind of the way they thought about things. I told Annie the reason she was kind of wondering whether the very dramatic crushing of the railroad car was the right thing. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I said the reason I want to play that is it's shocking. It's shocking. I mean, that rail car is massive, and it's sitting there and sitting there and suddenly crushed like that by the softest thing in the world, by air. I want people to be shocked when they see that. Wow. Now, maybe they've seen it before, maybe they kind of know about it, maybe they saw some version of that in their physics class in high school, right? But still, it's pretty shocking to see that, right? What's the point of being shocked? It's because most of Tai Chi and Qigong is counterintuitive. So you need to get out of your habitual ways of thinking. And the best way to get out of that is to take a couple of little shocks. All right? Now, in traditional Tai Chi, you know what the shock is? You push hands with your master. And you end up on the floor. And you go, how the hell did I just get here? It's shocking. It really is. And it's like, oh, okay, this guy knows more than I do. I don't know what he just did. I can't figure it out. So that's why I'm a student and he's a master, right? You have to have that awareness, or else you won't pay attention. Master Zhang, I can remember this day so clearly. He was trying to explain something to us. And as usual, you know, he probably had 30 students around, and he was explaining something, and it's getting translated because anything more than just very simple language had to get translated. He knew a few words in English, but nothing complex. But he did know this, right? He could tell that people were not quite, and he just went like this: pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And that has stuck with me ever since. And his final sentence is, this is gold. Pay attention, this is gold. Saying something is gold in Chinese is saying it's the most wonderful thing. It's gold. All right? He was serious about this stuff. Pay attention. You must pay attention if you want to get this. Not because it's so difficult. It's not difficult. It's that it's subtle. And it's counterintuitive. And most of us are sound asleep in our own mental habits. So if you don't get a little shock now and again, you just stay asleep. So, you know, Master Zhang would boom, boom, and you'd go, oh, okay, that was shocking. He said, I can remember this day too. He said, put your hands up like this. I put my hands up like this. He touched both my hands and just went boom, like that. And I was down on the ground with my face in the gravel in a second. And it was like, okay. I had no idea what he did. Now I've figured it out since. And it's not that he's going to tell you. He's not going to tell you what he did. What he'll do is do it to you again, and again, and again, and again. And he'll say, pay attention. Zhang was a really good teacher because he never gave you anything. He made you search for it. If a student asked a good question, he learned the English for this. A student would ask a really good question. I mean, it's a very insightful question. And he was so, that's a very good question. Go home. Practice. Search. I'm not going to tell you. Why did he not want to tell you? And he was adamant about this. He just didn't tell you. Why not? Catherine, why would he not tell you? Because he wanted the joy of discovery to be yours, not his. He wanted you to go and search and find the answer, and then it was really your answer. All right? And you had truly, honestly, really discovered this basic principle. Now it was yours. And what happens, and I can tell you from personal experience, what happens when the teacher tells you the answer? This is what everybody does. Oh, yeah, I knew that. Oh, yeah, okay, sure, okay. It's discounted. It's just like, yeah. When you struggle for it, when you struggle for it for years, trying to figure out, to put two and two together and figure out what the hell that was, and you finally get the answer, it's usually like, oh, of course, it's this or that. Then it's yours. Master Zhang, we used to do meditation, standing post meditation. I think I've told you guys this before. Stand like that for an hour. An hour. Watch what happens to your shoulders. After about 5 minutes, you're going to know what happens to your shoulders. All right? He would stand there for an hour. He would stand there for 2 or 3 hours. No problem. What was he doing?
Using the power of Peng.
Yes, but what does that mean? What are you actually doing? If you stand, if anyone, at least Americans, when you stand like this, the lactic acid will build up in your shoulder muscles and they will start to ache and burn, and then they're going to get really uncomfortable. But there is a way to do it where that does not happen. What is that way? What do you do?
Relax.
What does that mean? Exactly. There are a couple of things that you do specifically. You do them with your mind and your energy body, and they work. But he would not even go that far. He wouldn't even give you that much of a clue. You say, well, Master Zhang, oh, my arms hurt. You go, you know, relax. Kevin's answer. And he's right. Kevin was right. But what does that mean? What does that mean to relax? It means something very specific in this case. And if you don't get it, it won't work. If you do get it, suddenly you just sort of start laughing. All right? Now, the truth is, he had given us all the principles. We had been talking about all this stuff for years. But nobody was putting two and two together. And he would not explain it. The only thing he would say is, relax. And he's right. But relax how? What does that even mean? That's just a word. What does it mean to relax? The word relax is a clue, but it's not the answer. It's a clue to finding the answer. It doesn't mean relax like, lay in a hammock and relax in a hammock. That's not what it means. It means something very specific. It's the same when you're talking about the yin and yang cycles. Coil up, uncoil. Breathe in, breathe out. Coil the silk, pull the silk. This is the atomic structure of Tai Chi. If you don't know this, you cannot do Tai Chi. You're doing something that kind of looks like Tai Chi on the outside. Master Zhang used to say, don't do empty Tai Chi. Don't do empty Tai Chi. What's empty Tai Chi? It's Tai Chi that has none of this on the inside. It has no coiling up. It has no uncoiling. It doesn't know anything about that. So nothing's happening inside. You're just going like this. You're just physically moving your body like this, but there's no coiling and uncoiling. It's the coiling and the uncoiling that make it real, right? That make it is called being full. Okay, there are 3 yin and yang cycles in that little sequence. 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out. Just natural. All right. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay, well now you're working with the inside. You're working with your breath. You're working with your thoracic piston. You're working with the microcosmic orbit. And you're working with the silk reeling. Right? Reel the silk in. Right? You're reeling it in. Reel it in. Now stretch it out. Oh, reel it in again. Stretch it out. Reel it in. 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 Stretch it out. Right? It never stops. From the beginning of the form to the end of the form, the silk reeling never stops and it never breaks. You don't want, one of the reasons they call this silk reeling, in the old days, when they would want to make silk thread for weaving, or whatever they did with it, weaving, I guess, they would take a cocoon, right, that has a little silkworm inside it, and they would, the silk in a silkworm cocoon is a single thread. All of that silk, maybe there's 10 yards of that silk in there. It's all one thread. The question is, how do you get it off without breaking the silk? Well, silk is actually quite strong. Silk is actually stronger than steel. Nevertheless, it's a very thin thread, so it's easy to break. Well, you can find an end, which is actually the beginning place, right, for the silkworm. You find that, and you peel it off a little bit, and then you put the silk cocoon in your mouth, and you pull that thread out, right? And inside your mouth, the cocoon is just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, right? That's silk reeling. Spin, circle. They wanted that metaphor so you would know when you do this, you can't suddenly jerk it, because if you suddenly jerk it, you'll break the thread. You can't go too slow, because if you go too slow, the thread will sort of just bind up inside itself, right? And then now you'll have a mess. So the pulling the silk needs to be soft, gentle, and continuous. Soft, gentle, and continuous. That's the ideal for doing Qigong and for doing Tai Chi. Rand, does this make sense?
It does.
So one of the reasons, one of many things to get out of doing Fang Gong, for instance, or any of the Fang Gong in particular, because it's such a gentle, soft routine, is to practice that idea. Oh, it's gentle, it's soft, and it's continuous. It never stops. The thread never breaks. If you do this, for most people, the thread would break because you've made that sudden change in speed and you just snap the thread. You can get to the place where you can do that, but it takes a long time. It takes a lot of silk reeling and a lot of Fang Gong to really become acquainted with your inner silk. And then you can do things more quickly. But still, even then, you don't want to break the thread. Pull the silk. Reel the silk in. 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 Yin and yang cycles. Yin and yang, yin and yang, yin and yang. So I don't think I really explained it in this way before. Jill, have I explained it exactly this way before?
Not in my memory.
So I think it's good to do it this way. I think it's much more, I think it's much more grounded. What do you think? Yes?
Yeah, it's a good visualization of what we're
Good.
doing. Mhm.
So the point and the purpose of learning the yin and yang cycles is to learn when and where you reel it in and when you pull it out. And if you think about that, it's a very simple principle. This is very simple. Master Zhang used to say that too. People would be, oh God, this is so hard. This is so complicated. I can never get this. And he'd go, it's not hard. It's easy. It's not complicated. It's simple. Right? Of course, it's simple once you get it. Right? It's not hard. They're just a few principles, right? And it's not difficult to do if you pay attention. Pulling silk. Can you feel that? Pull silk. Wind it back in around. Pull silk. When you develop this in yourself and you really are feeling it, and I mean, you do feel it. When Annie and I were talking, she said, you know, because she's been doing this for a number of years. When I first started this, I could hardly feel that. I mean, I heard your words, but I could hardly feel what you were talking about. But now it's becoming much more solid. And that's exactly what happens. At first, it's kind of tentative. For us guys working with Master John when we first started, it was like, all right, I don't know what he's talking about, but he's got something, so I'll take him at his word that there's such a thing as a Dan Shan. I'll take him at his word that there's such a thing as Qi. I'll take him at his word that you can pull silk, all right? And so you trust your teacher because it's obvious that he knows something that you don't know. So you work on it and work on it and work on it, and then you start to go, oh, there was a little something there, right? Is that what you go to your teacher and you go, is that what it is? Is that what it is? And he goes, yeah, now go practice. Yeah, that's it. Congratulations, go practice. Right? And you just keep working it and working it and working it. And it gets stronger and more solid all the time until you get to the place where you can't remember what it was like when you didn't have it. All right? That, for me, that's real. I can feel it. I could go like that. I could go like that, but I don't like the feeling. Right? The feeling I like is about right here. Chen Fa Ke did it up here. His feeling was a little different. Right? You follow. Spiral. It's not your arm moving. It's your whole body. Calf. The calf moves first. Hip, shoulder, and then the arm. All right. There is, I've told you before, it's called the golden thread. From the beginning of the form to the end of the form, there is one single continuous golden thread. You don't want to break that. It's the silken thread. All right? So Tai Chi, yeah, the outer movement's important, of course. And it's very classical, right? We're learning a kind of classical set of movements that go back hundreds of years. But that's not actually the Tai Chi. The Tai Chi is what's inside. The outer movement is just the doorway, the doorway to get inside. Right? It's the inside where the magic happens. I'm not even thinking about the outside movement. I'm not actually thinking about the inside movement either. I'm feeling the inside movement. I'm feeling. What just happened down here? What happened back here? That's where I'm feeling. One last thought. When you are feeling yourself, you're not controlling yourself. You're feeling yourself. There are two ways that you can use your mind. One is to really focus in on something. The other is to hold a very global feeling. When you're doing this and you're watching yourself, you should use that global feeling. You're feeling everything in your body. Not just, oh, I'm not just focusing on here or here or here or here. And especially don't focus on your hands. Right? Just feel your body. All right, any questions? Kevin?
Oh, about 15, 16 years worth.
You just keep practicing. Keep practicing Qigong. Keep practicing the Tai Chi. It will happen. It's guaranteed. It will happen. Okay, guys, have yourselves a great day. Tomorrow we'll do some yin and yang cycle work on these first few moves. Figure out where we left off last time. All right, see you tomorrow.